It was late in the year 1864. Even without the lengthy train of tattered but jubilant people walking and riding across Georgia in the wake of the army that set them free, the Federal troops led by William T. Sherman and his fellow generals made a procession so long that it took close to a full gray December day for them to pass by. The front of the line was 2 days' march from Savannah when word came down the road about a rice plantation up ahead with a collection of unusual animals, the sort that most of the Yankee soldiers had only heard about but never seen. The talk was of lions and monkeys and elephants. Really, there was only one elephant, and also of camels. "Camels," said Margaret when her grandson came to tell her what he'd heard. She was rolling along in a wooden cart not much bigger than a wheelbarrow, towed by the mule-drawn wagon in front of her. One of the Yankee soldiers had arranged the cart for Margaret in deference to her age and solemn attire. Lately, she wasn't feeling like herself. Her old bones couldn't get warm, and she knew why. Until the commencement of the current hostilities, Margaret had consumed 2 cups of life-everlasting tea every day of her adult life. Her sorry state right now on 1 cup every other day was proof, if anyone needed it, of the herb's sustaining power. She was down to a single branch of dried leaves in her once full sack, and although she sent Malcolm on foraging expeditions and kept a sharp eye on the roadside herself, no bushy plants with just the right silvery leaves could be found. Unless this army parade could carry her home in a week or less, she was sure to run out before she got there. Her grandson Malcolm held on to the top rail of the cart's perimeter, his bare toes clinging to the smallest of ledges over a wheel. It was some kind of shame, Margaret thought, how dirty his shirt was, how little was left of his pants. She was going to wash him for a week when they got back home. "Lions, too," he said. "You seen lions once." Had Margaret ever seen a lion? She must have told him a story borrowed from another lifetime, maybe from her mother's. She said, "Camels saved my father's life. They carried him across the sands to Baghdad. Malcolm, watch your feet by that wheel." The boy leaped sideways and waved to her from the grass alongside the road. Having seen what the Yankees did to livestock, she half hoped the rumored lions and camels were rumors only. Not that she blamed the hungry soldiers for helping themselves to as much beef and pork on the hoof as they could eat, and she could see why they didn't want to leave the enemy to avail themselves of the animals left behind. It was the same reason some of the white farmers and planters shot their own livestock before the Yankees got there. That was the very worst, in Margaret's opinion, coming up on a farm where all the livestock were already dead for days and stinking like a pestilence. It smelled so bad, even in December, it made the babies cry. Margaret was right to worry. Upon seeing that collection of unusual creatures, the first thing the Yankee soldiers did was ask their superiors for permission to let the animals loose in the fields and hunt them down for sport. Their superiors wisely withheld this permission, and yet one of the lions had already been shot by a Yankee soldier pretending to be a lion tamer, such as he'd seen one time at a circus in Chicago. Using a long stick and then a whip handle, he kept poking at the old beast, who was either too tired or too bored to roar, until the soldier on a dare got right up close and stuck his face in the sleepy lion's face in a way that must have made the lion think that this was part of the part of the show where he was meant to open up wide so the human could put his head into the lion's deadly jaws. The lion opened up wide and scared the soldier so badly that he soiled his drawers and raised his pistol and closed his eyes and stuck his arm straight out and shot that lion right in the mouth, causing the poor beast to clamp his jaws shut in surprise. You can bet that Yankee soldier told a different story when he got home about how he lost his arm in the war. Malcolm came and told Margaret about it, his eyes brimming. "Oh, baby," she said, and he let himself be drawn into the folds of her dress, a long, loose dress of the same undyed homespun as her veil. She held him close and asked, "Is he shot dead?" Malcolm tilted his head back and looked up at his grandmother, suddenly hopeful. It hadn't occurred to him that the lion might be shot, but not dead. "You fetch me a cup of hot water," she said, handing him her tin mug, "and we'll go have a look." By the time Malcolm returned from the cook's wagon, walking as fast as he could with his eye on the cup, Margaret had replaced her brown homespun veil with a pale blue one that fell past her shoulders and was fixed so she could pull it across her face and keep it there. Margaret wore the blue veil as a sign of who she was, the daughter of Bilali Mahomet, faithful like her father to the prophet, in her heart slave to no one but God. Malcolm saw it as a sign that she had hopes for the fallen lion. He held the steaming metal cup and watched her pluck leaves of life everlasting from a dried branch and crumble them into the water, which immediately released a pungent and familiar smell. Malcolm breathed it in, and so did his grandmother, their two heads, one round and brown, the other draped in blue, bent over the rising wisps. She stirred it with her knife, took the cup from him, and loudly sipped 3 times before she gave it back. He took his sip without complaining, although he didn't like the mossy taste, only the comforting smell. The metal cup was perhaps a quarter full, and his nose was still crinkled, when to his surprise, Margaret crumpled the last leaves from her branch into the cup. Tamping the mixture into a paste, she said, "Thought we'd see if our lion friend needs a little life everlasting." She pulled the veil across her cheekbones and took Malcolm's hand. They passed wagons and horses and staring faces of every shade until they reached the fallen lion's cage. There, the crowd parted. Voices fell silent. Not one of them, not even Benjamin in his snowy white turban, had ever seen anyone quite like this solemn woman, so straight and tall that no one would ever guess her age at well past 80, her dark brown face half hidden by the pale blue veil. Margaret and Malcolm stopped at the end of the wagon cage, where 4 wooden steps led up to a door made of iron bars. Tall black Benjamin came forward with a big iron key. I skipped the part where you met Benjamin, who is the overseer of the plantation that the menagerie was from, and he too is a Muslim and wears this kind of famous for his white, very white turban. He bowed to her and said, "Allahu Akbar." Margaret's hand went to her heart, or so it appeared. Malcolm knew what she was really reaching for. Under her dress, inside a homespun bag that she wore on a cord around her neck, were the pages her father had given to her before he died, pages from an ancient book written in the language of the prophet. Allahu Akbar, Margaret agreed, and she added significantly that God was also merciful. Then she lifted her skirts ankle high, and her bare feet climbed the steps into the cage. Most of the dried blood was near the door, where the Yankee soldier had stood with his foolish face growing paler and paler. The crowd that watched Margaret step neatly around the bloodstains on the floor had witnessed the incident. They had all heard the shot. They had seen the lion fall. They held their breath as Margaret laid her hand on the lion's head and buried her fingers in his mane and leaned to put her veiled face next to his ear. Only those closest to the iron bars heard her say softly, "Old lion, my mother knew your mother. How long have I waited to meet you?" When she told them, as she crouched beside the beast, that the lion was not dead, they did not believe her. They watched her scoop the paste from the tin cup and apply it to the lion's cheek in a fleshy pad of muscle just below the temple, a spot almost hidden by his mane. She straightened up slowly, and even as she told them that the lion would soon awaken, though he would not be in the best of moods, the crowd began to murmur. Everyone had seen the right ear twitch. Well, some saw the left. Margaret exited the wagon cage with dignity, but no dawdling. Word came around later that General Sherman wished to meet the lady with the veil. Thank you very much.